All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to week number 7. That is right, week number 7 of your 9443 class, which is your academic libraries class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. Chase K. Austin, and what we are going to do today is a quick state of the course update, and then we're going to talk a little bit about library spaces. Now, when I say a little bit this time, I mean a little bit. So the last 2 weeks, we did have check-in videos in this class that were over 30 minutes, and I apologize for that, but there was a lot to say, and I hope you got some good, useful information out of that. But this one will not be 30 minutes. I decided that I would specifically find a topic that I could not talk 30 minutes about so that we didn't have over 30 minutes of check-in video this time around as opposed to the last 2 weeks, okay? So hopefully this one will be 20 to 25 minutes, and then if you speed it up, then it's not quite as miserable for you. But with that said, that means we have to go ahead and get into it right now, otherwise it will not be under 25 minutes. So let's go ahead and get in. Give me one moment. All right, so when we're talking about the academic libraries class and our state of the course update, the main thing that you need to know, and I mentioned this last week, so it's nothing new, is that your first essay assignment is going to be due on October the 13th. October the 13th, that is basically 2 weeks away. That is going to be due a week from this coming Sunday. Again, that is a week from this coming Sunday. This coming Sunday is October the 6th. And October the 13th will be the next Sunday, and I will expect to have your essays at that time. Looking forward to it. I know you all are going to do a great job. Aside from that, there's really not too much that you need to be aware of at the moment. In fact, yeah, we don't even, yes, okay, so we do have a sync session. I apologize. Also, in about 2 weeks, we do have a sync session. A little over 2 weeks, we're going to have a sync session, and this, I believe, is going to be our community college sync session, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, let me double check. Yeah, so October 15th is going to be our community college section, and that is, or session, I should say, and that's going to be with Sabrina Dick from Lawson State Community College in Alabama, which is also a historically black college, Brady Cross from Tri-County Technical College in South Carolina, and Mike Crumpton from UNC Greensboro, but who has written a book about community college librarianship, and he was a librarian for Wake Technical College, which is in the suburbs of Raleigh, North Carolina. Okay, so now let's get into a few words about library spaces and that sort of thing. Academic library spaces. Actually, I'm not even going to go to, because we got through the state of the course update in less than 3 minutes. I'm going to keep this video, believe it or not, under 15 minutes. I'm going to do that. And that is 15 minutes unsped, because I know, again, I gave y'all videos that were over 30 minutes the last 2 weeks. Need to balance that out, especially if you haven't had time to finish the last one, the last 2. Especially if you didn't have time to finish the last 2, but you would want it to. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to include 3 links in this, and they're going to be like 3 blog post links, basically, so they're not going to be very long at all. But these are going to talk about the changes in academic library spaces, and I'm going to allow you all, if you want to just read these. They're going to be optional reading, but I am going to kind of soapbox on these things just a little bit. So one thing that you're going to notice if and when you read this first one, so let me first just show you what I'm linking to. So library spaces are changing part 1. You've also got part 2. And you will also have this, which is how space supports programming changes at university libraries, okay? And again, this is the type of information that at a lot of schools, you're actually not getting this type of information at your academic libraries class. They don't get into the nuts and bolts a lot of times of day-to-day operations, so they don't talk about fines, and they don't talk about space and that sort of thing, at least not in the way that I'm doing it, in the practical way that I'm doing it. They'll give you like historical setups and then like some sort of, I don't know, theoretical stuff about what you can do with the space and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm just going to keep it practical and tell you trends and what has been going on as of late. So one thing that you're going to find in your academic libraries these days, and you're going to see it written about a little bit here too, is that academic libraries these days, and this is especially relevant for those of you who are students who are, I guess, returning back to get your master's degree after you've been out of school for a while. And I know that that applies to quite a few of you. If you are somebody who came into your into this master's degree program like within 5 years of your undergrad program, then you might not understand that it is actually fairly recent. The academic library is the way they do, with a lot of meeting space, a lot of computer space, and then just a lot of just relaxation space and a lot of space that you can walk in and things like that. Academic libraries have not always been like that. Academic libraries up until very recently, and when I speak very recently, I'm talking like probably within the last 15 years. I'm talking about 2009 on is when you really started seeing this shift from academic libraries devoting a whole lot of their space, maybe even the majority of their space, to physical holdings, and changing that to devoting a lot of their actual space again to computers and to collaborative spaces and learning and to relaxation and to those sorts of things. You may even have like maker spaces and different types of technology in your academic libraries as well. There are libraries, academic libraries that have maker spaces, and I hope that more get maker spaces. And if you don't know what a maker space is, I'll talk about that and let me know, and I'll talk about that in a future check-in video. But yes, so one thing that's happening with library spaces is that we are devoting fewer less square footage to physical materials. And one of the reasons for that is, of course, because we have so many digital materials now that you can actually dump a lot of your, especially when it comes to periodicals. So back in the day, a lot of these libraries actually did have like a lot of space devoted to periodicals, a lot of space devoted to bound volumes of magazine and journal issues and that sort of thing, and newspaper issues as well. You don't see that a lot now. A lot of that has been phased out, and a lot of libraries are relying on digital collections, particularly for their periodicals, for their journals, magazines, and newspapers. And the local newspapers and very popular magazines you'll still have in the print form, as well as your upper tier journals and a lot of your R1s. So for instance, the New England Journal of Medicine, if you're at Mizzou, you're probably going to have a print copy of that. I'm not exactly sure, and if you work at Ellis Library, you can tell me if I'm wrong. But some of those upper echelon, very intense periodicals, you're still getting the print form, because a lot of your professors honestly are kind of like fuddy-duddies and that sort of thing. So they think that there's something to actually holding that print journal and that sort of thing, okay? So again, one reason why you're seeing that space is being rededicated and repurposed in academic libraries is because the libraries are trying to work with a more digital collection, especially with ebooks as well, but especially with periodicals. But the other reason for that is because we are now more focused on making academic libraries more welcoming spaces than they were, especially, and again, this comes back to those of you who have been out of school for a while. Maybe if you're my age, I'm 41, or if you're a little bit older, maybe even a lot older, or a little bit younger, maybe 5 to 7 years younger than me. If that's the case, if you're probably no more than 7 years younger than me at 41, you probably, when you went to undergrad, if you went to undergrad right out of high school, you probably remember that the academic library was not that much of a welcoming space, and it didn't need to be a welcoming space because what it needed to be was an information space. Now people can get their information from other places very quickly due to high-speed internet, combined with these search engines and these databases and that sort of thing. So you don't need people actually in the library to get their information, but you still want people coming into the library. So if you still want people coming into the academic library, then you have to make it a more welcoming space. You have to start devoting more space to collaborative learning. You have to devote more space to, you might even devote a floor. I know a lot of academic libraries will devote a whole floor to quiet learning. You can't speak on this floor, but there's still not a whole bunch of stacks there and a bunch of materials and books there. There's a lot of work area that's quiet for people who want to work and that sort of thing. And because it is easier now also to move materials to off-site storage and that sort of thing, you don't need the library to be just this warehouse and this storage of information. You can use it for other things because there are ways now to very quickly bring materials back onto the campus and into the academic library if it's held in storage offsite somewhere, okay? All right, so another thing that I want to mention, and this is worth mentioning, and this part 2 here actually does a good job of setting up this mention. So One thing that's happening in a lot of libraries, a lot of academic libraries, and this is one of those things that you will hear a lot of people say, oh, they didn't teach us that in library school. Well, you are learning it in library school, and that's because you have yours truly as your professor. And I try to teach you some things that you aren't normally taught in library school. I won't be able to teach you everything. There's so much librarianship is very interdisciplinary. And so there's no way that any library school program anywhere on earth can teach you everything about librarianship, but I try to give you things that I know a lot of library science programs are not giving you. That's my way of thanking you for choosing Mizzou. Thank you for coming here. But with that said, yes. So one thing that you're probably not going to hear in a lot of library school programs, but I'm going to let you all know, is that academic libraries a lot of times do end up getting rated for space, if you will. So what I mean by that is, for me, as somebody who believes in the academic library and its purpose and all that, I believe that the academic library should house things related to information. When you talk about materials and you talk about offices of librarians and all that stuff, blah, 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 a lot of universities and colleges are also using their academic libraries to house other places such as writing centers and math tutoring centers and that sort of thing. And they are also even for things that are not even learning related. They are putting things in the library like they're using their academic library buildings for additional office space for university personnel who they didn't know where else to put them. They would put them in offices in the library and take library space that could be used for something else. They would be doing things like, there have been one or two examples where academic libraries were forced to take in maker spaces after somebody who wasn't even involved in the library, like the provost or chancellor, said, oh, well, makerspace sounds like a good idea. We need a makerspace on campus. Where can we put one? Oh, there's nowhere else to put one but the library, so let's put it in the library. And then they put the makerspace in the library, but then they don't give the library another position line so that they can hire somebody to run the makerspace. And then the makerspace becomes the problem of the librarians on staff, and a lot of times that wasn't originally in their job description, so they don't like it when it gets forced onto them. So, there are places that are not necessarily being careful with their academic library space. And so that's why I want to come to this right here and just note, I won't read the whole thing or go over the whole thing, but I do want to note that at this particular academic library, this is on the campus of Central Michigan University, they actually did relocate their writing center and their mathematics center out of the library, and I think that is the way to do it. I think that the library space should be used for materials or should be used for, I don't know, consultation rooms, meeting rooms, so forth and so on. But the library space, in my opinion, should not be used for these types of academic support things like writing centers and math centers and that sort of thing. Now, I like when those things are nearby the library. So on the campus of UMKC, University of Missouri, Kansas City, for instance, the writing center and the math center and all that stuff is in the student services center, which is right next to the library, and that's how I like it. But I don't like things to actually be in the library. I think the library should be able to have control of its own space and use it for library purposes. Okay, I said I was going to keep this under 15 minutes, and that means I've only got a minute and 20 left, so I can't talk much about this link, but I will say that right here, yeah, this is what I want right here. So because so many students nowadays are engaging more in active hands-on learning, which we found that there's various research that does suggest that students do better when learning is like a two-way process or an interactive process as opposed to a one-way process where it's just an instructor giving information to the students. Students learn better when there's interaction and that sort of thing, hands-on activity and that sort of thing. And so, yes, the libraries are also, in addition to adding maker spaces and that sort of thing. Yes, so they're adding maker spaces, as I mentioned, but they are also adding a lot of these different types of technology that you can use in order to do collaborative learning. For instance, you will see libraries that will have like collaborative learning rooms where they have like the monitor, and then you can plug in like 4 different laptops into the monitor, so the students can all just be they can take turns sharing their screen on the monitor and sharing their information and things like that. So okay, this is going to go over 15 minutes, but it won't go over 16 minutes. So yes, they're using space also to put learning technologies in, and so that's a little bit of a bridge between LIS and learning technologies when you're in the School of Information and Learning Technologies. So there you go. But with that said, again, I said I was going to keep this under 15 minutes. I failed to do that, but I will keep it under 16 minutes. I am Dr. Jace, and there is a very important subject within academic libraries that you don't see written about in textbooks that much, and that is academic library space. So, Jace, space. I did make the rhyme. Got it. I will see you all next week with another check-in video. Ta-ta.